Hi everyone, welcome to Liberty Tactics. It's the 8th of June 2013 and it's about 11:15. James and I are here with the one and only David Icke.
That's the main camera. Just letting you know.
I'll talk to them.
You talk to them.
Hey everybody out there on interwebs land.
Yep.
Right.
David, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. It's warm in here, though, isn't it?
It is really warm.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it's amazing what's happened in the last few days, because I remember my first Bilderberg location was in Switzerland in 1995, and the great Jim Tucker. Not many people even heard of the Bilderberg group in those days, never mind thought anything about it. And we got this email, those that were actually on the mailing list, and he said, I found out where the Bilderberg group's meeting this year, and it was a place called Bergenstock, and was on the top of a mountain in Switzerland. And the story of my life, since, you know, what happened to me in the early 1990s, a few weeks before I got the email, I'd arranged to go and stay with some friends in Switzerland at the same time, 2 hours away. So I remember I drove down the day before the meeting started, and they were putting up the, you know, temporary fencing and all that stuff, and all the suits were around with their name tags on and all the rest of it. And there were three really unbelievably James Bond type flash hotels next to each other. The Park, the Grand and the Palace. And then I went away, and I came back on one of the days that it was going on, and I couldn't even get on the mountain. There was a small village at the bottom of the mountain road, and then you went out of the village and all up the mountain, right up to these hotels some distance away. Right where you left the village, there was a roadblock. And there was this Swiss policeman in a luminous orange jacket. I remember that clearly. It was like one of them, you know. And I said to him, what's going on? I came up here the other day, I just want to go to the hotel. He said, oh, top secret, top secret. I said, you know, he was a nice bloke. I said, well, what do you mean top secret? What kind of top secret? What's going on? He said, I don't know. I just know it's top secret. And I thought, yeah, that was just a classic compartmentalisation, the way that they keep from people what's going on and what they're actually policing. And only a few people actually know what's going on, what's happening. So that was 1995. And then you come to 2013. I mean, you know, we've been working to pick off their secrecy to the point where we can pull it into public awareness. Now, that started to happen in recent years in terms of public awareness of those that were looking for it anyway. But the great breakthrough here this year is that awareness has broken through into mainstream perception through the mainstream media in Britain, who by the sheer weight of evidence and interest have been forced to look at it and face the fact that it's happening. And you know, there are still people in the media who are saying, oh yeah, but it don't really matter, and all that stuff. We said, excuse me, deep breath, look at it again. Here you have all these people representing corporations, politics, banks, you know, all these military people and like Petraeus, CIA, former CIA. And they're meeting under one roof across borders, across different countries. And we're not allowed to know what they're discussing. I mean, to say that doesn't matter and it's not really relevant is ludicrous. But what the mainstream media are now, you know, I feel from a bit, because in the next little while, and not too long a while either, this is kind of the start of it. They've got to start facing the fact that they have been reporting the world inaccurately, in an absolutely inverted way, in fact, often the opposite of what the world's like, and face the fact that they have been misleading people about what's been happening and to what end. And instead of, and at the same time, abusing alternative media and researchers who've been telling them how it really is. And they've got to now come to terms with that, because the information that the world is controlled by a hidden hand, and most important on top of that, the fact that the public mind is now open all over the world, is opening to the fact that it does look like this is the case. That combination, which has been making the mainstream media, in terms of interest and people buying newspapers, etc., which has been eroding their relevance for years, well, that erosion is going to become a landslide, especially the more that we in the alternative media get more and more outlets and opportunities for communication. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not saying that this weekend the dam's coming down. It's not. But I tell you what, when we look back to this weekend, we will see it as a very significant crack in that dam. I've used this analogy before over the years. When a dam is holding back a vast body of water, it takes a long time for that body of water and the weight and the pressure to start showing cracks in the dam. But from the cracks showing to the dam coming down can be very, very short. And we are now seeing this cusp of awareness, which can now start us moving on to the next stage, which is going on, although we still have to keep doing this, going on from just removing ignorance of what's happening through information, but start removing the acquiescence of the public to authority. So that, as I say, that the tail's not wagging the dog and it's not wagging the elephant, it's wagging the planet. That's the dynamic of who controls to who is controlled. And I see a way out of this when I see billions of people being manipulated by a handful. I do see a way out of this. And it's ignorance and acquiescence. Now, the ignorance is starting to dilute. This is a major, major step on that road this weekend. I mean, if it ended now, it's been great. Of course, we want to do more in the next couple of days. But that ignorance that keeps people in servitude through not realizing they're in servitude, that is being eroded. And another thing that's adding to it, it's like a perfect storm is starting to come together here. What's also adding to this is now people's daily experience. When you're just about paying the rent or easily paying the rent and there's food in the fridge and all that stuff, then it's kind of, oh no, I don't really want to know. I would talk about the real world, mate. But when the real world starts impacting upon your life, and that's what's happening to vast numbers of people with these austerity programs and so on, then that concentrates the mind. And so, in every sense, what has been in the shadows is being drawn out. What's been in the shadows doing the manipulating is being drawn out. And also, what's been in the shadows waiting to pounce, i.e. the banking crash and the austerity programs and all these things that have been planned for so long in the shadows, they've now hit the surface. So now we're bringing the unseen into the scene on so many levels, and that it gives us an opportunity now to concentrate minds to the point where we can start to do something about this, which is removing the acquiescence to authority that allows the few to dictate to the many.
We noticed that this year, never has there been any mention of it on the BBC ever. And this year they are forced to have it come and talk about it, and all the other mainstream papers. The Guardian has done it over the years with Charlie Skelton, but now the mainstream media they've got no choice because it's so big. And the amount that we've been talking to residents, we've been talking to police, and they're all in the same mindset. They're all sort of agreeing with us. They understand why people are so aggrieved by it all, don't they? That even the residents,
I was shocked because as we were driving in on the Wednesday night, the police were very standoffish, telling us that we weren't allowed in, we had to stay. We were all huddled together in a very small wedge in between some bushes, and you start getting that aggression built up because especially people that don't like being oppressed and pushed around like that. But then I think as time went on and the police saw that we were all just normal people and we just wanted to know what these guys were doing, all very polite, courteous, they started opening up and realising, that what they were probably told was going to be coming. They were probably all jacked up thinking that it was, that there was a bunch of people ready to, cause some mayhem. The residents had
of
no
Watford
idea
are
either.
disgusted because, why should we be footing the bill for these multi-millionaires when pensioners are having their bus passes taken away, and we're footing the bill for these millionaires to sit in secret illegally. It's just unbelievable. But this year, I think, is a monumental year for the exposure of it.
Yeah, well, what we have, funnily enough, symbolism is very powerful because symbolism gives you an image that tells a massive story. It's like a picture paints 1,000 words and all that stuff. And when you look at the setup at the Grove, it is the society that they want globally, and it is the society that we're moving towards so fast. You've got the tiny few, 140 is it, in this flash, massively expensive hotel. You then have the people excluded to the periphery, kept from the hotel, the elite, in the Hunger Games movie, the Capitol, by this ring of steel. And you have this ring of police keeping the people apart from the elite. And the society they want, and the society we're heading towards so fast, is a tiny, tiny elite of mega rich people living apart from the masses in high-tech luxury, just like the Capitol in the Hunger Games. And then they want not a middle class and working class like staff. They want the few mega rich, and they want the rest mega poor in mega poverty. And it even took me aback a few weeks ago, a couple of 3 weeks ago, when I saw a graph in America of incomes for American people. What you would normally have up to this point, and even this was a state of equality, was poor people going up through middle class to rich people, like that. But the reason, I was talking about this to Alex Jones yesterday, the reason they are targeting what they call in America middle class, and here too, but ours is quite slightly different version, is because they don't want that. Mm-hmm. They want that. Mm-hmm. And this graph of current American incomes didn't go like that. It went like that from poor through what they call middle class, because of course that's been fantastically in America by outsourcing jobs and what have you, at the end of manufacturing industry. And then from here, it soared up. And this bit here was just 1% of the American population. And that will be hierarchical in terms of wealth as well. And that part of the graph was so big, they had to put the top next to it because it went off the page. Now, when you look at what I've just described, and I've been describing all these years about what the game is, the tiny, tiny mega rich and the rest mega poverty, you can see we ain't far off now, especially in places like America. Look at Greece and stuff.
Yeah.
And this is what the banking crash was about. The banking crash, and many of the people involved in that banking crash, like Robert Rubin and Timothy Geithner, the Treasury Secretaries of Clinton and Obama, they're in the bloody Grove as we speak. They crashed the economy in 2008 to start a coldly calculated massive transfer of wealth from people to the rich 1%. First stage was governments bailed out the banks. So now a banking problem is passed to a government problem. The government then passed it on to the people in austerity programs, making the banking problem through a government problem become a people problem. Mm-hmm. And that was stage one. Stage two was in Cyprus. Stage two in Cyprus was to set the precedent of removing the government in this transfer of wealth and going straight from people, from their bank accounts into the mega rich. And this is why I keep saying to people, you know, while these austerity programs are going on and on and on, people leaving their homes because they can't get a benefit to stay there because they got one bedroom too many, according to these people who are mega rich that are running the government of this country. While this is going on, there are still some people who are kind of okay. Mm-hmm. They're not part of this whole network of that are transferring wealth from people to them, but they're pretty well off. They might run biggish companies, they might have a good job and all that stuff. Well, what I'm trying to get across to them is I don't care how much money you've got. I don't care if you're some celebrity. If you're not part of this network, they want your money too. Because that is designed to become that. And there ain't many in that. Mm-hmm. So lots and lots of people, vast numbers of people who might not be watching this because they think there's not a problem, well, they really ought to rethink, because they're symbolic and possibly literally, their door's going to be knocked on eventually. Because what they're doing is they're picking off different bits of society and they are hoping that others they're not touching at the time will look the other way and say it's not my problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's why we have to come together, because it's all our problem. It's the problem now in Britain of people who are leaving their homes because they've got one bedroom too many. It's a problem for people in America who are living in tent cities. And it's the problem of people who are not in that state yet.
Yeah.
When some way along the line, that's going to happen to them.
Yeah.
And this is why we have to come together. And why I say, when I say about this symbolic situation at the Grove this weekend, you've got the tiny few, the elite few, the 1%, and less than 1% in truth. You have the people, you have the ring of steel, and then what they want in this Hunger Games society is for that mega rich few and the mega poor masses, for that status quo to be held in place by the ring of dark suits and uniforms that are keeping the people in line and keeping that status quo going. So here we have at the Grove, we have a situation where between the mega rich in the hotel and the people in the grounds, you have this cordon of police and security. And that is the structure that they want global society to be. But I would say that to these people in that ring, in uniform. And it's a strange psychological thing when you observe how, although the people in those uniforms have come from the people in the grounds, not from the elite in the hotel, so many think their job is to protect authority in the hotel. It's, I'm here to protect authority. Notice, police and the military do not take an oath of office to the people, but to the Queen, to the monarch. They are taking an oath of office to the people represented in that hotel. And what I'm saying to these people in uniform, and there are people who are starting to see it, but there's a difference between starting to see it and doing it, is start to see that the people you're policing are the very same people who are trying to awaken people and alert people to a world that's coming towards us that will enslave your children and your grandchildren, which you've got to look in the eye one day and say, what were you doing, Daddy and Mummy? Well, actually, I was protecting them from those people who are doing all this. Mm. And what we need is a movement, a shift in perception and action within the police and within the military that turns its attention from thinking its whole reason for being is protecting the elite few and start to realize it's about protecting the many of which they are a part. Mm. And what I mean by that is instead of standing outside the Grove Hotel saying, well, I kind of agree with you, mate, I know, then refuse to police Bilderberg. Refuse. En masse. If you don't believe in what they're doing, then stop policing Bilderberg. Walk away, or in future Bilderbergs just say, I'm not doing it. Yeah. That's what we have to do. We need to, sounds strange, but I know people look for income and they look for all that. I mean, there's people driving these people in and out of the hotel. Yeah. Well, those drivers are not of the elite, they're of the people. Mm. So don't do it, refuse. We've got to start turning discontent with the way things are, with action to change the way things are. And I hope this weekend will be a trigger for that.
There's only one outcome if we continue the way we're going. Yeah. There's not going to be some, it's not going to continue. If it's ramping up, it's ramping to somewhere. So, definitely. Time is of the essence.
Yeah. Well, Ron, it was the first time you and Alex Jones met in person yesterday. Yeah. How was that?
Very good. Yeah. Alex Jones gets a lot of stick from people. I've had a bit of stick myself over the years. I kind of recall it vaguely. But I've heard this stuff. Oh, Alex Jones, he's CIA, he's in front, and all that stuff. Well, all I can say, having watched Alex over the years and met him last night, well, he's a bloody good actor then. Mm. Because people might not like the way he goes about things, because it's he's his own personality, and people, if you're not going to be criticised, well, I was going to say, if you don't want to be criticised, then just sit and stare at the wall all your life. But then someone will criticise you for doing that. Yeah. So you're always going to get stick when you put your head above the parapet. But what I've seen of Alex Jones, you cannot act the passion he has for what he does. You can't. And he has made a major contribution to this whole thing, as many people. Definitely. Yeah. I like the guy.
Now you're setting up your own TV station. You've got the basic funding.
Yeah, well, that's where we are. I'll tell you what happened. I had a guy from the Sunday Times come to interview me about, must be about 5-6 weeks ago now. And it was horrible, basically. And it was another concrete-minded journalist. And, they said we want to do a major interview over many pages in the Sunday Times magazine with an author of books that, in the way it's put together, it's kind of unique information. And the guy turns up to interview me and hasn't read a single page of any book. I mean, so when you're dealing with that, because what's happened is he's walked through the door with a preconceived idea. The story's written for he's arrived. I'm just there to say he's talked to me, really. And it really struck me. I thought, we're not going to do this through the mainstream media. It's going to take too long, even then. Are corporations that own the media going to expose themselves through the media they own? Yeah. I mean, let's just think about this. So, what I'm saying in telling this story is that my mind was fertile and open to how can we bypass this. Mm-hmm. And it's a funny thing. A friend of mine, Mike Lambert, a great mate of mine, great healer too on the Isle of Wight. He called me just after the interview, and he said, on the Isle of Wight we have this a version of eBay called White Bay,
right,
where people on the Isle of Wight sell things. And he said, it's a radio station for sale. Oh, what? On White Bay, And so he checked it out, and there's a guy who was running an internet radio station, very small, but he had the equipment and he had the gear, and he was selling it for not very much. And it didn't suit us. It didn't suit me, the requirements. But the Sunday Times article and internet radio station for sale triggered something. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, okay, what can we do this? And I got together with Sean, a webmaster and producer, who's got vast experience in television, working in television and stuff. Very good on the technical side and everything. We thought, we'll go for it. Then how do we fund it? And then I never heard of these things. These, you know, where you Kickstarter and all that stuff. And so we give it a go. And what we initially asked for, and by the way, none of this money's going to me. It's totally non-profit making in the sense that all profits that we eventually make, we're going to make them for a while. Will all be ploughed back to make it bigger, not into. I mean, I'm working for it for nothing. I'll go on working for it for nothing. But we asked for 100,000 because that was the minimum to get on air. That was to do a basic job where information will be communicated. But the fact that the 100,000 has been raised in 6 days, and there's another 23 left, 24 left, 23 left about. Means that if it goes on at this rate, then we're going to be going to air with something more than we thought we'd be able to. I knew what I wanted eventually, but we would have to grow to that. We could get much closer to that earlier if this goes on. And what I want is, I want the English Day covered by presenters of not just this information, but absolutely this information, and reacting to events and what have you, and giving people a platform, you know, for their expertise in areas the mainstream media wouldn't even go near them. Mm-hmm. But also exploring the nature of reality, giving bands and musicians the opportunity to have a showcase that they wouldn't normally have, comedians and all the rest of it. You know, I'm hoping Frankie Boyle will do something. Right. You know, can you imagine the week with Frankie Boyle, where Frankie Boyle has no censorship, and that's what that's the reason I'm doing it. The only censor of output will be libel, right? Yeah. Because the last thing we want is to say anything about anyone that's not true anyway. Mm. But yeah, and. What I want is the English Day covered from London. It will all be switched through London, but it's not all presented from London. And I want the North American Day an evening presented from America. Mm. And I want other programs giving us a look at Africa, of the Middle East, and Australia, New Zealand, that part of the world, but in a way that is uncensored. And that people can speak the truth and not, you know, no one's going to be looking over their shoulders saying, you can't say this, you can't interview this person, you mustn't allow him to say that. All gone, totally uncensored. And the power of that is going to be immense, because what you're doing is creating an example that the mainstream media isn't even close to, and it's going to put pressure on them to start acting like real journalists instead of repeaters of the official version of everything. So, you know, it's looking good, and I've never been involved in anything in my life that triggered such a fantastic response and support than this people's voice. And that's what it is, the people's voice. You know, there's going to be no David Icke show. You know, I'm not going to be there. Oh, you know, I'm David Icke. I want the people's voice. Listen, oh no. I mean, I'll be in it. I'll be doing stuff on it. Yes, and flitting all over the place in and out of the content as. But no David Icke show. This is about giving the people the opportunity to hear what they need to hear and to say what they need to say. And about bloody time. There's a lot of people doing this now in shows like yours and stuff like that. What I wanted to do was get something that's running 24/7. So there's always an outlet to see another version of whatever's happening in the world at the time. And you know, the great thing, I mean, you've got a camera there. This camera, by the way, looks like a cinema screen. I've never seen anything that big. If you saw it from where I'm sitting, it's incredible.
We're waiting for it to become self-aware.
Yeah, well, be more self-aware.
He's worked really hard, and every penny put into building his
what I'm saying is that the technological situation's now reached the point in which it's also, although the technological developments are being used to oppress and to keep surveillance on people and all the rest of it, it's also presenting a situation like all over the Grove with the people. You've got a camera. I mean, you're doing it now. You've got a camera, and you press a button and you're going on the web live in an instant. Now, that makes the kind of thing that I want to do with the People's Voice absolutely possible, where you're not stuck with needing, outside broadcast vans and all that stuff. So put all that together, and I think 3 months. We're trying to get on the air. We want to get on the air in November. It's a big ask because there's so much to do. But 3 months in, I think we'll be really impacting.
And will it be going over satellite or internet?
It will be going over the internet initially, and that has benefits. It has benefits, and you're not stuck with all the regulation of the other channels. That means that we can be uncensored. Whereas if you go through, the other channels that you're talking about, suddenly you're into state regulations of this state. You can't say that. You can't say that. I'm not interested in that. If you want to watch a media where someone in the background, whether it be government or an editor, is saying, can't say that, you can't interview him, don't touch him, and all the rest of it. Well,
that's BBC.
The BBC, ITV, NBC, CBS, all of them. That's no point in doing a mirror of that. And the other thing I really want from the presenters is, there's no shirt and ties, and here is the news. I want people with personality, right? Who are actually going to be themselves, who are going to be relaxed, who are not going to be talking at people, but talking with them. But people who are highly informed and are going to ask the questions that the mainstream media won't ask. And I've already got. I have someone on my list of presenters, and she was sitting there, and a lady called Sonia Poulton, who writes for the Sunday Express. She's quite a regular on This Morning in ITV, and she's on the Jeremy Vine show on the BBC and stuff. A really excellent mainstream journalist, but not a mainstream person, who's been, really desperate to say what needs saying within the constraints. And I thought, come on, Sonia, go for it. She went for it immediately, so she's going to be a major frontline presenter from day one, and that's the kind of personality we want. But if people have got talent out there, and they're confident and they're highly informed in the subjects, well, there's the opportunity. It's there.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's really
brilliant,
exciting news.
So before we finish up, because I know you've got a really busy day, you're speaking at 5
o'clock,
today, and. What are you going to be chatting? Bilderberg, obviously. Well,
what I'm going to be doing, formulating it in my mind a bit, because I don't read a script or anything, and I like to go where the music takes me when I'm talking. It's lovely, but I want to put Bilderberg into context. There's a group of rich people and powerful people on the level that they operate. In true power, they're village idiots and village weaklings, but seven-stone weaklings. But in the point that they operate, they have a certain amount of power, and they're meeting in this hotel. So the question then is, what's going on? Why? What is Bilderberg? Why are they there? Why did they do it? Because Bilderberg, when put into context, is only part of a massive story. And I'm not going to go into the whole story, but I'm going to look at how Bilderberg fits in and what is really going on under that big roof as we sit here today.
Great.
Brilliant.
Well, thanks for
see you later.
Thanks, David.
So
do I.
And we'll see you later on this afternoon.
Yeah, we're going to be live streaming on a barge in a little while with Mark Anderson, who took over from Jim Tucker with American Free Press. So we'll be live streaming then in about an hour's time. So from a barge at Bilderberg. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
not many people even heard of the Bilderberg Group in those days, never mind thought anything about it. And we got this email, those that were actually on the mailing list. And he said, I found out where the Bilderberg Group's meeting this year, and it was a place called Bergenstock, and was on the top of a mountain in Switzerland. And the story of my life since, what happened to me in the early 1990s. A few weeks before I got the email, I'd arranged to go and stay with some friends in Switzerland at the same time, 2 hours away. So I remember I drove down the day before the meeting started, and they were putting up the temporary fencing and all that stuff, and all the suits were around with their name tags on and all the rest of it. And there were 3 really unbelievably James Bond type flash hotels next to each other. The Park, the Grand and the Palace. And then I went away and I came back.
Hi everyone, welcome to Liberty Tactics. It's the 8th of June 2013 and it's about 11:15. James and I here with the one and only David Icke.
That's the main camera. Just letting you know.
I'll talk to them.
You talk to them.
Hey everybody out there on interwebs land.
Yep.
Right.
David, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. It's warm in here, though, isn't it?
It is really warm.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it's amazing what's happened in the last few days, because I remember my first Bilderberg location was in Switzerland in 1995, and the great gym, different countries. And we're not allowed to know what they're discussing. I mean, to say that doesn't matter and it's not really relevant is ludicrous. But what the mainstream media are now, I feel from a bit, because in the next little while, and not too long a while either, this is kind of the start of it. They've got to start facing the fact that they have been reporting the world inaccurately, in an absolutely inverted way, in fact, often the opposite of what the world's like, and face the fact that they have been misleading people about what's been happening and to what end. And instead of, and at the same time, abusing alternative media and researchers who've been telling them how it really is. And they've got to now come to terms with that, because the information that back on one of the days that it was going on, and I couldn't even get on the mountain. There was a small village at the bottom of the mountain road, and then you went out of the village and all up the mountain, right up to these hotels some distance away. Right where you left the village, there was a roadblock. And there was this Swiss policeman in a luminous orange jacket. I remember that clearly. It was like one of them, And I said to him, what's going on? I came up here the other day, I just want to go to the hotel. He said, oh, top secret, top secret. I said, he was a nice bloke. I said, well, what do you mean top secret? What kind of top secret? What's going on? He said, I don't know. I just know it's top secret. And I thought, yeah, that was just a classic compartmentalisation, the way that they keep from people what's going on and what they're actually policing. And only a few people actually know what's going on, what's happening. So that was 1995. And then you come to 2013. I mean, we've been working to pick off their secrecy to the point where we can pull it into public awareness. Now, that started to happen in recent years in terms of public awareness of those that were looking for it anyway. But the great breakthrough here this year is that awareness has broken through into mainstream perception through the mainstream media in Britain, who by the sheer weight of evidence and interest have been forced to look at it and face the fact that it's happening. And there are still people in the media who are saying, "Oh yeah, but it don't really matter," really, all that stuff. We said, "Excuse me, deep breath. Look at it again. Here you have all these people representing corporations, politics, banks, all these military people and like Petraeus, CIA, former CIA. And they're meeting under one roof across borders, across